Welcome back. Now joining me live from our Abuja studios to take a look at the peace accord issue is the Executive Director of the Center for Peace Building and Socio-Economic Resources Development, Mr. Ayokunle Fagbemi. You're welcome to the News at 10.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now let's begin from the comment by the Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, saying that security agencies and INEC should also sign the peace accord. How would you respond to that?
I do appreciate the concern of Governor Wike, and it should come from an informed person like him, who is clearly interested in ensuring that we maintain peace, law, order, and security before the 2019 general elections and during the elections itself and thereafter. Primarily what Wike was trying to draw attention to is that we needed to understand that for any electoral security to be maintained, we need to appreciate the fact that the lead agency is the Nigerian police. Even though you have the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security in the country, ICAS, that interfaces with INEC, the electoral management body. It is clear, and it should be understood, that Nigerians need to please appreciate the fact that the word police actually means the public officer legally empowered, that is, a public officer for the legal investigation of criminal emergencies. Now, if police is for legal investigation of criminal emergencies, it means that they must operate within the statutory rules and regulations governing the police, and the same thing goes for INEC. And so all that Governor Wike was trying to draw attention to was to say, let us do a holistic stakeholder mapping, a holistic content and context analysis of electoral violence in Nigeria, and appreciate the fact that usually the challenges often associated with elections that often lead to violence has to do with the conduct and the style of service delivery of the electoral management body INEC, and or the conduct of security operatives that are deployed. And as such, the risk assessment for any electoral cycle must be holistic, must be all-encompassing, and all the stakeholders ought to have been brought on board. In 2015, we had a similar experience where the stakeholder mapping was properly done, and stakeholders that were involved at that level that time included the Office of the National Security Advisor then, the Office of the Special Advisor Political to the then President was actively involved. But unfortunately, the dynamics during this period has changed, and painfully, the incumbent Special Advisor Political Affairs became a little bit political because he had to go contest for elections, so he could not elevate himself to the level of governance and statecraft service delivery required to bring to bear for such an assignment like this that would have brought every stakeholder into the mix so that we can have a thorough and well-conceived peace accord that should have been an improvement on the accord that we had in 2015.
Mr. Fagbemi, besides the governor, there are some others who have dismissed the peace accord. They think it's merely symbolic. Do you agree with that position?
I will not immediately agree totally with them, because what we are dealing with is that we had a success story in 2015. We are trying to build upon it, and there are some gaps that we have now experienced. And I do believe that within the next couple of days and weeks preceding the election proper, we will have some of the stakeholders do the needful, particularly the Office of the National Security Advisor will be doing one or two things that will make sure that the risk assessments are properly done. The electoral management body will be involved in the required confidence-building measures that will ensure that stakeholders can begin to trust that things will be properly done. And the Nigerian police will have to live up to the expectation required to ensure that citizens are properly taken along and the political actors are reassured that they are going to be impartial as per the statutes, particularly in terms of their service delivery, and that the electoral management body will ensure that all that needs to be done in terms of making sure that the sensitive materials are well secured is made transparent. I do hope that other statutory bodies involved in regulating activities that usually have one or two things to do with electoral cycle that escalate issues, like the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, will need to step up the antics to ensure that all media outlets, and not just the private outlets, are brought under the scrutiny of their monitoring and evaluation and tracking of what they do transmit. The idea of a public-owned media outlet refusing a party or the other should not be allowed during this dispensation.
Thank you so much.
And the NBC, the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
Mr. Ayokunle Fagbemi, that's all we can take on the News at 10. A pleasure having you with us. To other stories now. The United States mission says one of its primary goals in Nigeria is to support the country's economic development by promoting entrepreneurship. This is the thrust of the speech delivered by the Public Affairs Officer of the United States Consulate in Lagos, Russell Brooks. He was speaking at the end of a two-day training session for alumni of its Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI.
Statistics from the National Economic Council shows that Nigeria has more than 37 million micro, small and medium enterprises, which account for 84% of the jobs in the country and 48.5% of the gross domestic product.
Information and strategy.
Ensuring better growth in this sector, especially for emerging entrepreneurs, is why the United States is training some alumni of its sponsored programs.
I'd like you to know that one of the U.S. mission's primary goals in Nigeria is to support this country's economic development. In particular, we look to promote the concept of entrepreneurship, and where possible, we are highlighting the contributions that entrepreneurs make to the growth and prosperity of Nigeria.
Beyond acquiring entrepreneurship training, learning from an experienced hand is important, so the Group Chief Executive Officer of Veloxis Industry Limited is present to share his story and tips for growth.
Marketing, creativity, distilling the difficulties you're facing and coming up with solutions is very key. There is no magic about it. It's a lot of hard work. That is where the passion comes in. You must be dedicated to your calling.
The representative of the Lagos State government gives a word of encouragement, while some participants also share the lessons learned.
The Employment Trust Fund of Lagos State, go for it, because in 3 years, more than 7 billion naira has already been distributed. From 100,000 to 500,000 to 1 million, sometimes to 3 to 5 million.
Okay, taken away from here is how to scale up my business. I've been operating on a very, very low level. From this yearly program, I've gotten how to take it to a higher level.
All over the world, it has been demonstrated that entrepreneurship is critical to any country's development, so it's important that governments at all levels ensure that the right environment and policies are created for these young people to succeed. Bukola Jokitumbi, Channels Television News.
On business news, the NSC is announcing a big movement that will take effect in a couple of days. Imana will be telling us more about that and other stories now.
Welcome to Business News. The Nigerian Stock Exchange has announced the migration of real estate investment trust schemes and closed-end funds to a separate board under equities. The shift, which takes effect from December the 17th, follows an earlier statement by the exchange on restructuring the framework for the trading of rates and closed-end funds listed on its platform. The migration aims to promote visibility and liquidity, as well as provide a multi-asset platform that caters to different classes of investors in the market. Meantime, the second trading week of December at the stock exchange ends in the red, following significant profit-taking activity in 3 out of 5 sessions. The market's benchmark all-share index dropped by 0.63% to 30,672.79, while the equities cap fell by 0.58% to close at 11.204 trillion naira. Losses from the consumer goods, the oil and gas component outweighed marginal gains from the banking, insurance and industrial goods sector and contributed to the market's downturn. Meanwhile, total volume of shares traded this week increased by over 30% to 1.16 billion shares, valued at 14.76 billion naira in over 14,000 deals, compared to last week's turnover. Forte Oil is the highest among 34 gainers, up 33.89%. Double One, formerly known as Mobil, is the top among 37 losers, while 98 equities were unchanged for the week. And the central bank says the Treasury single account transaction value surged by 27.01% to 13.53 trillion naira last year, up from 10.65 trillion naira in 2016. The CBN attributes this growth to increase in the migration of the federal government's ministries, departments and agencies to the TSA. According to the CBN's 2017 annual activity report released by its Banking and Payment Systems Department, the payment instructions comprise recurrent, overheads and capital expenditure. The financial market regulator also explains that volume of transactions grew by 3.84% to a record 39.7 million in 2017 compared to 38.24 million recorded in the previous year. The Acting Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Ms. Mary Uduk, says the issuance of sovereign green bonds has the potential to solve Nigeria's infrastructural deficits. In a statement, Ms. Uduk explains that the attendant effects of climate change lately justifies the need for sustainable infrastructure projects in Nigeria. She notes the need for proper monitoring of use of proceeds for green projects with multiple social merits, as the country's infrastructure deficit is expected to hit $878 billion by 2040. The SEC's chief restated the Commission's plans to sustain an active environment for the issuance of these instruments by qualified entities. And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Emana Amawe. It's back to you, Melinda.
Many thanks, Imana. Still ahead on the news at 10. Commonwealth Games gold medalist Tobiloba Amuso sets new National Sports Festival record in the 100 meters hurdles with a time of 13.06 seconds. That's on Sports News. Join us again.